5 ways I find books that I enjoy. Let's do this. Okay, number 1. I don't know why I'm looking over there. Number 1, watch monthly wrap-up videos. If you don't know, there's a saying on BookTube, that's just what they call it, BookTube, whatever. On YouTube, book reviewers do a thing called wrap-up videos. And basically, they take all the books that they read during the month and talk about them in one video. And they usually have more in-depth reviews in the description and all that. So I highly recommend you watch those videos. I've been doing that for 2 months now. It's a very new thing for.
Okay, I just need to pause myself real quick. I just want to note that this video was made quite a while ago at the beginning of 2022, maybe in March. I haven't made any more wrap-up videos, unfortunately, but I still have the two that I made. Also, I've read a lot more books now than I did when I made this video, although I still believe that these tips are good and I still follow them. Also, I want to mention that all this stuff is just my opinion. It's not by any means a fact or anything. It's just how I find books that I enjoy. And yeah, just thought I'd let you know in case you're wondering. Anyway, back to past me.
But there are a ton of other booktubers out there that do amazing wrap-up videos that just I always like. I watch them and I'm like, hey, I want to read that book, and I've done that and I've read the book and it's like I'm really glad I read that book. So I highly recommend you find some booktubers that you can trust to deliver you truthful reviews and just see what you think of a book that they read, and if they think that they liked it or even if they didn't like it but the stuff they said sounded like something you might like, you should check it out. That's a great way to find books that you enjoy. Again, I do monthly wrap-up videos. You can check out the two I have so far. They also have quarterly wrap-up videos where they do one for every 3 months of the year and talk about their favorite books and the books they didn't like. That's a great way to find new books to read because they're, again, everyone does it every month. So that's a lot of people to get some recommendations from or potentially books to avoid, which is equally as important. Number 2, this might be obvious, but find a genre that you might want to read. So there's a couple tips that I have for doing this. First of all, if there's movie genres that you like, if you like sci-fi movies, you might also like sci-fi books. If you like fantasy movies or TV shows, you'll probably also like fantasy books and TV shows. If you like romance TV shows and movies, again, you'll probably like romance books. So that's a great way to kind of start somewhere. If you have no idea what you like, or you like all genres of movies and TV shows, then just kind of explore. So maybe you think you might like fantasy, then find a easy fantasy series to start with, or even a single book, which is kind of uncommon for fantasy, but as far as I know. But just kind of start somewhere. If you doesn't seem like you like fantasy, maybe switch it up and try historical fiction. If you don't like that, you're not really into that, maybe try reading a contemporary novel or something like that. And also, you have to take time to read a couple books in a particular genre. I that's how I learned I really like historical fiction. I didn't know, just inherently know. I read This Tender Land just because it sounded interesting. I'm like, hey, that was really good. Then I read Tattooist in Auschwitz, realized I really liked that, and I started reading more and more, and then I realized I really like historical fiction. And now I'm starting to realize that I really like sci-fi. So that's a great way to do it, is find a genre and explore that genre, explore new genres too if you can't find one, and eventually you'll be able to pinpoint it. But yeah, and the new movie and TV show is a really good thing because I should have been reading sci-fi for a while now because that's like my favorite movie and TV show genre. So it makes sense why I would like sci-fi books. So I think that's a pretty good tip. Tip number 3. Read books from an author that you've previously had a good experience with. So, for example, I read A Gentleman in Moscow and I thought it was amazing. I went ahead, read The Lincoln Highway and Rules of Civility, wherever it is. So, that's a great way to learn about an author and explore, again, that same genre, because most authors write in one genre, Amor Tolls, for example. And then you're also seeing if you really like this author or if it was just a one-time thing, one-time book that you liked. It's a great way. And usually if you like one of the author's books, you'll probably like the other ones. I mean, maybe not most of the time, but a majority of the time. So that's a really good way to find more books that you like and explore authors. It's really cool to read all the books that an author has to offer and compare them. You can see the growth of the author, and that's always fun to do. Okay, tip number 4. This tip is something not to do because there are things that you shouldn't do when trying to pick out a book. This is, I think, is a big mistake that a lot of people do when they're getting into reading books. It's something that I did a lot, and sometimes I still do it because, well, I'll explain why. So this tip is don't walk into a bookstore and just pick out a book based on the cover and the back matter or the back description. The reason why is because every single book is going to try to make their book sound like it's the best book ever. And it might just be inherently not for you, but even if it sounds like the perfect book ever, I just don't buy it until you read some reviews or something. I mean, you can buy it, do whatever you want, of course, but I just don't. I highly recommend not buying a book after seeing it in the store for the first time. So I saw a book one time. Um, it was called like Black Leopard, Red Wolf or something. And it is a very popular book. It wasn't for me, right? I didn't read it. I later realized after buying it that this book wasn't going to be for me. And I'm not saying anything bad about the book. I'm just saying it wasn't for me. So I bought this book, had a really cool looking cover, and the idea sounded really good. The description said it was the literary form of Marvel. Yeah, no. Definitely not. See, that was wrong. That was like I can't call that a lie, but like that's really far-fetched. Just saying. Um so if I had just read one review on Goodreads, I would have realized this is not the book for me and I wouldn't have bought it. So don't waste your time just blatantly looking through a bookstore unless like you kind of like to do that. That is something that I like to do sometimes to just discover new authors that are potentially not as popular. I do that in the like new releases section. I'll look in there a couple times and see. But then again, I don't buy the book then and there. I'll write it down and then I'll go home and read reviews about it and see if it's worth my time. Because you don't want to waste your time. Don't waste your time reading books that aren't good. Okay, so the last tip, it goes hand in hand with the previous one. If there is a book that you think you might like but you're just not sure on it, you what you need to do is watch or read a review on the book. The thing about it, about watching and reading reviews, isn't so much getting someone else's opinion. Well, no, it is. It's not so much seeing if someone else liked the book or not. It's just seeing if what they're saying sounds like something you would like or dislike. So again, with that example of that other book, I quickly realized that the stuff that they're describing in the book, I would not enjoy. So it's a great way to quickly figure out if it's going to be the book for you. Also, if you have a trusted booktuber that you can watch reviews from and you can check and see if they have a review of a book you might want to read, and if that booktuber says they don't like it, maybe consider not reading it. If they said they really liked it, maybe that's a strong push for you to read this book and put it on your list. Also, I want to know, just because someone says they don't like it doesn't mean you shouldn't read it. It's just to give you an idea if it's for you or not. It's not about if they like it. It's just to see if it's something that you might enjoy. I highly, highly recommend that you do this. Every single book that um, I've read where I've done this, I either expected that I wouldn't like it as much, and I'm just reading it because I want to read it, doing for example, um, or I took their advice, read it, and loved the book. So yeah, that's a really great thing to do. I put out a lot of reviews. You know, you can watch my reviews, see if my books, the books I read, maybe you want to read them. You know, maybe subscribe so you can see those. I don't know. Leave like, comment, follow me everywhere on the social media. Anyway. Now let's get into some recommendations. If you are subscribed to my channel, you already know the first book I'm going to recommend is A Gentleman in Moscow. A Gentleman in Moscow is about a man who is put under house arrest by the Bolsheviks and kept there for the rest of his life, essentially. And you see how he moves through that and learns and meets friends and thinks about life and art and his country. So, yeah, that one's good. I think A Gentleman in Moscow is an outstanding book if you like historical fiction. It is kind of a slower moving story, very character focused, talks about a lot of themes. But if that sounds like something that you might like, you're probably going to love it. If you don't like A Gentleman in Moscow, historical fiction, you know, maybe read one more historical fiction or a couple more to see if you like the genre. It is a really good genre, by the way. I love it. But yeah, I highly recommend that book. It's one of my favorites ever. And I think Bill Gates likes it too, if that matters to you. I mean, it wouldn't matter to me, but I don't know. I'm going to try to give some books from a lot of different genres. And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. I've only read one of her books, but I need to read more because that's probably the best mystery book that I've read. Honestly, I haven't read that many, but that's the best one I've read. And I highly recommend it. It's just really well done, very well thought out. I liked the ending quite a bit. It made sense. Yeah, I like that book, and I really want to read more of her books. But I recommend that to see if maybe you really like mystery, because that's a big genre, like murder mystery kind of stuff. Next recommendation. Here's a sci-fi recommendation. Dark Matter. Dark Matter is especially good if you're getting into sci-fi, such as myself, because it's not super complex, easy to understand, but also really fun to kind of nerd out over. Um, Even if that's not something you usually do. It's very character focused, which, from what I understand, is not a common thing in sci fi. So it kind of breaks some genre rules, which is good if you're trying to get into the genre. Dark Matter is about a guy who gets kidnapped and sent to an alternate reality. And then he's trying to get back to his home, essentially. So I highly recommend that book. Also, one of my favorite books of all time. People aren't that crazy about it. Other people aren't, but I'm crazy about it. Like, I'm obsessed about that book. A Gentleman in Moscow and Dark Matter, by the way, are the only two books to ever make me cry. And that says a lot. Well, it doesn't, I cry about stories a lot, but like, they're the only two books out of all the books I've read in my life to make me cry. So, highly recommend them. Next is another historical fiction, This Tender Land by William Kent Kruger. Highly underrated and not doesn't get enough appreciation or readers, honestly. But that's one of my favorite historical fictions. Also one of my favorite books, but not as much as A Gentleman in Moscow and Dark Matter. But still, it was my favorite book for a very long time, and it is very beautiful. I need to reread that book, honestly, because it was so good. Like, I love that book so much. This Tender Land is an epic about these children who are escaping a reform school, a native reform school, which is a very evil place, and they're escaping that reform school and heading down the Mississippi River, meeting all sorts of strange and unusual people that you just fall in love with. So yeah, highly recommend that one. Next one I'm gonna recommend is a manga, and I recommend Monster. I haven't even finished it yet, but it's really, really good, and not as popular as like Attack on Titan or other manga, but I think it's super good, and it goes to show, like, the point of me putting this on there is like you don't have to read books that are like, you don't have to read them because they're books and they're sophisticated and stuff like that. Read what you want to read, honestly. And a lot of people say that, and it's good, but you don't have to read things because it'll make you seem like a smarter person for reading it. You should read what you want to read and enjoy, because those are going to make you a smarter person too. So, yeah, if you want to read manga, or if you're even slightly interested in it, you should check it out. That goes with exploring different genres. This is like a thriller mystery sort of thing so far, so that it's good. I don't really gonna say much about it. The last book I'm gonna recommend is The Cards That Are Dealt by no other than myself. The Cards That Are Dealt is about a secret gambling club in a high school. Sorry, it's about a secret gambling club in a high school, and how one of the students in the high school uses this club to try to save his grandmother from lung cancer and prove his doubters wrong. Yes, it is my book. It's not by some very well-known author, but I do recommend it if that sounds interesting to you. It is a young adult, and that's the first time I mentioned young adult on this list. So, yeah, you should check that out. It'll be in the link. It'll be in a link in the description. So, yeah, thank you for watching my video. I hope it helps you find some books that you'll enjoy. If it did help, or you found it enjoyable or entertaining, be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. Again, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.